The women's basketball team is still dancing. After a historic semifinal victory over Middle Tennessee State, the Pirates have the WNIT championship in their sights. On the men's side of the hardwood, former St. Peter's coach Shaheen Holloway was introduced as Seton Hall's newest head coach on Thursday afternoon. On the diamond, both the baseball and the softball teams continue their spring action with local competition this week. So, will the women's basketball team take home the WNIT trophy? What's in store for Shaheen Holloway and the men's basketball team? How will the baseball and softball teams fare in their week of action? My panel and I will discuss all of this and more. I am Jimmy Bliss, and this is Hall Talk. Welcome back into Hall Talk. Once again, I am Jimmy Bliss, and I am joined alongside by a wonderful duo of analysts, Chris Ellison and Bobby Steiner. Before we start talking all things Seton Hall Pirates sports, fellas, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, Jimmy. Thank you.
I'm doing great. Ready to talk sports with you guys and ready to get started.
Yeah, well, you know who else is doing great? The Seton Hall women's basketball team. They punched their ticket just last night to the WNIT championship game with a 1-point win over the Middle Tennessee State team with a go-ahead shot with 3 seconds to go by Sydney Cooks. And Seton Hall will be playing in the championship game later this week. And Bobby, I'm going to head to you first. Give us your initial reactions to this 1-point nail-biting victory that Seton Hall had over Middle Tennessee State.
I thought this victory was phenomenal. It really was characteristic of the women's team, their grit, they don't have any quit in them, really. It's phenomenal to watch.
My first reaction was honestly just wow, because this game could have went either way. Both teams were fighting and clawing their way back. Lauren Park Lane hit a clutch 3-point play in his final 17 seconds to give them the lead, and then Andre Espinoza-Hunter gets a steal, passes it to Sydney Cooks, and I think that's just categorizes the season that it has been for Seton Hall. They started off sluggish, but the big three has come up and really provided a spark and a jolt for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. The big three has showed up time in and time out for this team. And my biggest takeaway from this was, of course, Sydney Cooks had a monster of a game. She had 28 points. She made 4 3-pointers as a center. That's almost unheard of. And another big takeaway was this Seton Hall team, they can win when Lauren Park Lane doesn't have a very good game, especially for her standards. She had 16 points but 5 turnovers. That's unprecedented for her. Usually she averages about 22 points a game, especially recently for the Seton Hall team. She's been putting her team on the back. But here she had a little bit of a tough game. Andre Espinoza-Hunter made a few threes, but Sydney Cooks dominated in that paint, having 28 points and led the Pirates to a victory. And on the other side of the semifinals, South Dakota State took down UCLA in a very, very tight game. This South Dakota State team, very, very good, and they're going to be playing Seton Hall on Saturday. And we know everything about Seton Hall this year and how good they are, but Chris, Bobby, who is the one jackrabbit that the Pirates need to slow down in order to get this victory?
I'd say the Pirates really need to key on 6'1" redshirt junior Maya Selling. She's the team's leading scorer. She's a double-double machine, averaging 14.3 points per game. But as a whole, I really think the Pirates should really focus on the offensive end. Defensively, the Jackrabbits are averaging, giving teams 58.6 points per game. They're really stingy on that side of the ball. So I feel like if the Pirates can really get one possession defensively and crash the boards offensively, will be great.
The player that I had to look out for is Peyton Burkhard. In 5 tournament games so far, she has 14 or more points in 3 of them. She's been shooting 50% or more in 4 of those games. She's a solid rebounder, and she's really good at getting assists. And despite having a slightly off game last game against UCLA, she shouldn't be overlooked. I know that you said that Selland is the leading scorer, but I believe that Burkhard is pretty underrated.
Yeah, I have the exact same player that you do, Bobby. I think Payton Burkhard is a very, very underrated player on this team, and she struggled mightily last time out. She She scored, I believe it was 6 points, and I think that was the reason why South Dakota State struggled so much against UCLA. Typically, she averages 11, 12 points per game, but just last time out wasn't able to get that going. So with her struggles, UCLA was able to keep themselves in this game. If Seton Hall is able to pester her and it just be a one-woman game for South Dakota State, it's going to be very, very good for Seton Hall and their chances to win this game. And now that we've had the tail of the tape between Seton Hall and South Dakota State, Bobby, I'm going to go to you first. Will Seton Hall win this game and take back the WNIT trophy, or will the Jackrabbits keep it in South Dakota State?
See, I might be a bit of a blind optimist here, but this game is definitely winnable in my opinion. These last two games were gritty, they were hard fought, but they came out on top. They can definitely do it again this round.
So, Jimmy, you talked about how this team can win without Lauren Park Lane having a good game, and I think that's the key factor in this championship game. If she can have a good game, she can go off, that's great, but if she doesn't, we still have the firepower to back it up, and I 100% think the Pirates are going to win this time out.
Yeah, that makes it unanimous then. I think the Pirates are going to end up winning this game. I'm going to give it a score of 64-57. The Pirates with a 3-possession win. Don't be alarmed if it is a little bit more than that, because this Pirates team has a lot of firepower. And when their big three of Lauren Park Lane, Sydney Cooks, and Andra Espinoza-Hunter are playing well, they're nearly impossible to beat. I expect Sydney Cooks and Lauren Park Lane to both score at least 20 points, and Espinoza-Hunter to score 15, maybe 20 as well. Anyway, moving on to the other side of the hardwood with the men's basketball team. Huge news in South Orange this week as former St. Peter's head coach Shaheen Holloway got appointed as the Seton Hall next head coach of the men's basketball team. He's a Jersey legend. He played here at Seton Hall, and it's a homecoming for him, a true homecoming for him. And Chris, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think of the appointment here of Shaheen Holloway by Seton Hall?
I think this was a no-brainer hire, honestly. You know, for months we heard rumblings that Kevin Willard was leaving the school, you know, and then he basically confirmed it on his exit press conference. But I think this is a really exciting time for the Hall. This is new energy, new life, and Shaheen, I think Shaheen embodies the spirit of Seton Hall. I think he's going to do great in recruiting. I think he's going to do great connecting with the players, and he just brings that new element, that new fire to the team that we haven't had in a while, honestly.
I fully agree with you, Chris. I mean, all the storylines about how he's a Setonian at heart, the whole homecoming thing you were saying, Jimmy, and how he was able to lead St. Peter's, a perfect Cinderella story. Not perfect, but the best Cinderella story possibly in tournament history. And there's one thing I wanted to focus on. The praise he's been getting around the college basketball world has been insane, in my opinion. You have people like Ed Cooley, who's been he's a favored coach. He's well respected. There's Bill Raftery. My personal favorite, Rick Pitino, is saying great things about him. Rick Pitino, he's a national champion, a Wooden Award recipient, and a Hall of Famer. He knows a few things about good coaching, what it means to win. So I feel great about this hiring.
Yeah, I think everyone around Seton Hall thinks the same thing, that the Shaheen Holloway hiring was a huge step for Seton Hall, and it could take them really to that next level. Now, I'm not going to go out and say Seton Hall is going to light the world on fire next year. It usually takes 2, maybe 3 years for a coach to come in, establish their culture, get their guys in with their recruiting and transfer portal, and then at that point, they can start from the bottom, they can start building their way up. I think Shaheen Holloway has the opportunity to become one of the top 2, 3 coaches here in the Big East very, very quickly. And he has a 6-year contract here for Seton Hall. So it's clear to see that Seton Hall does believe in him. And it's very easy to believe in him when he just brought his St. Peter's Peacocks all the way to the Elite 8. And now transitioning a little bit to that, we just saw that last week as they just did get eliminated from the NCAA tournament by UNC. Of course, no harm, no foul on that. UNC, a fantastic program. And being able to get to the Elite 8, huge step for both St. Peter's and for Shaheen Holloway. Now, do you think he can replicate his success with St. Peter's and bring Seton Hall to an Elite 8 within his 6-year contract? Bobby, we'll go to you first.
So, in all honesty, I don't think he can recreate exactly what he did with St. Peter's. I mean, that Cinderella story was insane, going all the way to the Elite 8 as a 15 seed. I mean, Seton Hall hasn't really been they've been a higher seed, but I definitely see a Sweet 16 run. In 6 years is a lot of time. I mean, come on now. But definitely a Sweet 16, definitely getting out of the first weekend, but I don't know how far, honestly, he can go.
Personally, I'm so high on Shaheen Holloway. I've been following him for a while now, and I really believe he can lead this team to the promised land. It's like you said, a couple of down years. It's going to take a few years to get everything settled, get everything going. But the way he has a hold on New York, the way he has a hold on New Jersey, the amount of players he knows, it's just there's too many connections that he has for us and for Seton Hall not to be a cohesive and great unit. So while it's going to take a couple of years, and then I agree with you, he can't repeat what the Cinderella story that St. Peter's was, because that was just amazing. Who expected them to beat Kentucky? But that was just amazing. But I really think he can have that same level of success here, but it is going to take a couple of years.
I agree with you, Chris. I think that in a few years we could really see Seton Hall take that next step to the first tier of college basketball, because right now they're low first tier, high second tier, at least in my opinion. They could really make that push up. And another big thing that hasn't been brought up a lot is Seton Hall is in a hotbed for so much high school talent, right outside of New York City. And that was my biggest takeaway from the Kevin Willard reign, was he wasn't really recruiting well locally. He was getting a lot of players that were out of the area. They were good players, don't get me wrong, but when you're recruiting players from like Delaware, Maryland, the Midwest, or you could be getting players from New York City, from New Jersey, from the state of New York, very, very good basketball areas, that's when you're going to get that step up. Because if you get 4 stars from local areas, that's going to inspire the kids that are in high school now that they're going to want to go to that team and play with this coach. And if Seton Hall has a good year this year, and I don't think they will because they're losing 4 of their starters, losing Bryce Aiken, Jared Roden, Miles Kale, Ike Obiagu. It's going to be very, very tough to replicate that. But if he does bring over a few of his transfers, maybe Doug Eddard, that would be the dream for all of us here at Seton Hall. But if that does happen, huge things here for Seton Hall in the future. And I do think that within this 6-year stretch, I do see a Elite 8 matchup here for Seton Hall. Now transitioning from the hardwood to the diamond, the baseball team has had a little bit of a rough season to start this one. They're 5-18 after 23 games played, and they do have a tough week of games ahead of them. They have a 3-game set against Mercer, as well as a 1-off game against Princeton. So Chris, I'll head to you first. How do you see this week going for the Pirates?
Well, tough would be an understatement. They have looked just lost out there at times. But like you said, they have won their last 4, which is giving them momentum, giving them fire under their bellies. And listen, being hot in sports, being a hot team in sports is one of the most dangerous things. We've seen it with the women's. Our men's team has done it multiple times. It's just a really, really dangerous thing to do, being in sports. So I think these 3 games can go off really well for them against Mercer. I think they can win out. Princeton, it's a little up in the air. I think they can win out against that too. So honestly, I think they can win all 4 if they keep clicking and do what they've been doing.
I'm actually with you on that. They can win all 4 games. This momentum from last week is very helpful for them going into this week. Their pitching last week was phenomenal. On the 30th, Alex Nicolosi, 4 innings pitched with a save, 5 strikeouts. The bullpen had 0 earned runs and 5 innings pitched in that extra inning game last week. And the pitchers in that game stranded 10 Monmouth runners. That's a crazy stat for me. And Joe Sanella on the 26th, 1 earned run over 7 innings pitched, so both the rotation and the bullpen are going off. Zach Sylvester and Colin Sheehan had a great offensive week last week. Their offense really heated up, I saw. I have high hopes going in this week, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more pessimistic than the 2 of you here. I understand being excited, and I think that Princeton game is a winnable game for sure. Princeton averages giving up over 8 runs a game. So as long as Seton Hall has an okay pitching outing, they should be okay, as long as it's not a disaster. Mercer, that's where I think that Seton Hall is going to run into a little bit of trouble. They're 21-5 Mercer is. They have wins against 2 top 10 programs in Florida State and Georgia Tech. This is a very, very good team. And they have 3 players that are batting very, very well. A guy named Antonio Brown, who is batting .421. They have Trayson Hughes at .393 and Bill Knight at .377. Those are very, very good batting averages. And if Seton Hall is unable to command their strike zone early on in the first few innings, it's going to be a long few games for the Hall. But I do think if they get 1 game from Mercer and they go 500 this week, I would take that as a win, because Mercer's probably one of, if not the best team that you've played thus far here in the young season. Finally, we're going to move to our last topic here on this edition of Hall Talk. We're going to talk about the softball team. And they have had an all right start to their season after 25 games, 12-13, not the worst, and they are right in the middle of the pack here in the Big East. This week they have 5 games lined up. They have a 1 game against St. Peter's, and they have doubleheaders between Manhattan and Stony Brook. Huge week, 5 games in just a 7-day stretch. And Bobby, I'm going to go to you first. How do you expect these 5 games to go?
I expect them to go quite well. I don't think they'll go undefeated like the baseball team, but they definitely have a chance to go back above 500. Here, I do believe genuinely that despite their below 500 record, this softball team is better than their record shows. I mean, case in point, that game on the 25th, the first game doubleheader that they lost, I forgot if it was the first or second, but the game they lost in extras on small ball. I mean, that's just a bad break, losing by 1 run like that. I actually have some more. I love these stats here. So there are 7 qualified batters on the softball team, meaning 2 plate appearances per game and 75% of games played. Out of those 7, 4 are batting above 300 and 6 above 280. 6 have 10-plus RBI, and 2 have an OPS of above 1,000, and one of them being Shelby Smith. Shelby Smith, on top of being a great batter, is also a pretty solid pitcher. She racked up a save in the other game, the doubleheader, 2 innings pitched, no earned runs, 4 strikeouts, earning that save. And they definitely, I see them going probably 3-2, going back above 500 this week, definitely.
Bobby, you broke that down beautifully, but
Thank you.
I 100% agree. I think this trip can go genuinely well for the Pirates. Manhattan sits at a 5-13 record with them losing their last game. Stony Brook is coming off a tough doubleheader as they sit at 16-9, one of the best teams in college softball, and they're on the 2-game winning streak. St. Peter sits at 11-15, having dropped their last 5. So I think you can win out against Manhattan. You can win out against Stony Brook, and you can't win out against Stony Brook. Stony Brook is one of the best teams in college softball. So overall, and you can win out against the St. Peter squad because they've looked abysmal. So I say they tie the series against Stony Brook and they go 4-1 overall.
You know, Chris, I was thinking the exact same thing as you. I think you get 1 game against Stony Brook and you win those other 3. Manhattan, they're 5-13. They've really struggled pitching this year. So if the softball team have a good day pitching, they should be able to win that doubleheader. St. Peter's, they're 11-15, so that could go either way, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards Seton Hall just because I've seen them do it for a little bit longer, and they have a little bit more momentum, a little bit more moxie on this team, and that's a big thing in sports. Against Stony Brook, they're a tough team, but if you're able to win just 1 game, that's a win in my book for sure. And if you're 4-1 after this week, you're headed back into Big East play with a lot of momentum. You're over 500, and you're right in the thick of it with all these other fantastic Big East schools. I'm excited to see how the rest of this season pans out for the Pirates. But anyway, that will wrap up this edition of Hall Talk. For my analysts of Chris Ellison and Bobby Steiner, I have been Jimmy Bliss. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.